No. And of course, luckily for them, it isn't. Or maybe they were wise not to do it that way. I don't think anyone really knows when Muhammad was born either. Not really accurately. They can suspect, but to pinpoint it is almost an impossibility. Now, we know Muhammad exists, unlike, I think, Jesus, whose existence one has to be very careful of, because the stories told about them are so wild. Stories about Jesus are so wild. You know, I don't want to hurt people's sensibilities, but we ought to be honest here in this class. You know, when I was young, I believed everything. Someone told me this happened, that happened, there were angels, this kind of stuff. I believed everything. I only when I was 35, 40 years old, I began to say to myself, well, I never saw that happen. And then I began to wonder. Before that, I thought the problem was with myself as far as the documents went. You know, I said there must be a reason why I'm not getting this. Like, for instance, when the blind see and the lame are cured, and the woman with a running flow of blood, her blood stops after she's been bleeding for 10 years and stuff like that. I mean, there are miraculous cures, some kinds in the universe, but not quite that many when the lepers are suddenly cured and so on and so forth. And I said, no. So I think my big moment of understanding came, and after long endeavors, I got to India. And I said, well, now I should be able to see better, because I deserve to see better, because I've gone through all these hardships, and I've been a faithful person, and I've done all the things I did. So I dropped my glasses into the Bay of Bombay, and nothing happened. In fact, 2 months I went around India groping like a blind man, seeing nothing. I saw, but not very well. I finally ordered a new pair of glasses and gave up. I suddenly realized that I gotta change my view of these things. It isn't me that's the problem. It's the stories that are the problem. It's the stories that are the problem. And from then on in, I've been very critical of the stories. Now, I may be wrong. You don't have to take my view. That's just my own personal experience I'm telling you about. I was about 25 when that happened. And from that moment on, I've been worrying more about the stories than myself, trying to sort out what is true and what isn't true in ancient storytelling, legends, historical views of personages and so on. Now, fortunately, Muhammad is someone who basically, his life devolved within the lifetime of written history. So the Muslims have a really good record of Muhammad. Plus, they have documents that they attribute to him, documents that they consider he was I don't like to say he wrote, because if you say Muhammad wrote anything, you're going to get a Muslim very perturbed at you right off the bat. Why would a Muslim get upset if you said Muhammad wrote such and such thing? Because the official view is that an angel dictated such and such thing to the prophet, and he was only a recorder. He did not write. He wrote things down, but in fact, the Muslims say he was unlettered. He couldn't read or write. So they say that he recited these verses to other people who then wrote them down, but they don't even say they came from Muhammad. They came from what Christians would call the Holy Spirit, what the Muslims call the angel Gabriel. You'll have to excuse me, because I am in a Western university here. And even though this is a religious studies class, it's not a mosque. This is not a church. This is not a synagogue. It's not a Buddhist temple. You don't have to like what you hear in a class, but you have to understand that you are in the temple of the Descartes universe here. If you don't want to be in the temple of the Descartes universe, then you should go to Al-Azhar in Egypt, or you should go to the University of Baghdad, or go to Pakistan. But when you go to a secular, modern, Western, particularly American English University, you are in the temple of Descartes. Now, every math, logic, and computer person in this class, I leave the business people aside, know what being in the temple of Descartes means, don't you? What is the temple of Descartes? And why are we in it? No, you don't. Come on, you tell them.
Very open-minded.
Not just open-minded. Descartes actually developed a system of activity to try to get down to basic principles. And he called this systematic doubt. He called this systematic doubt. And that's what we do in science. Those airplanes don't take off on faith. The rockets don't go to the moon on faith. Even the stuff that was used to blow up the Twin Towers doesn't happen on faith. In fact, you see, when a group of people within the plane decided that they had had enough, the plane had to crash in a field in Pennsylvania. These things don't work on faith. These are scientific objects which have a certain capability and also a non-capability. But those things are tested, those wings are tested, and we are grateful that they are, because we don't want to get in one of these things and find out that the person who created this thing was a believer in whatever religion you're talking about, whether it was Buddha, Christ, or some other, it doesn't matter. They can be a believer, but first of all, they have to be a believer in who? Someone like Descartes. I am going to subject, Descartes said, everything to universal doubt. You have to prove it to me first before I'm going to accept it as true. This is the Western University. We call this the Cartesian system. You know why it's called the Cartesian system? You've heard of the Cartesian universe? I think even a Cartesian graph on a paper. It's after Descartes' name. That's where it comes from. Cartesian, if you didn't get this in math classes, you lost something. Cartesian comes from the word Descartes, the name Descartes. Because guess what? Descartes invented the calculus. Descartes invented, along with some help from Newton and Leibniz, but principally Descartes, invented the calculus. How many of you are familiar with calculus? Only a few of you? What university you come from? You never took math class where you have to do calculus? No. We need men. How many have done any calculus? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's